International Data Privacy Day today. According to a recent report, phishing attacks have increased by 57% since the start of the pandemic. And even then, it was a growing problem. Companies have a duty to their employees and customers to ensure protections are in place, as criminals are always trying to get one step ahead. But when it comes to ourselves, what are the best practices we should take on to make sure we keep our data and money safe? To answer this, we've invited Brian Pinnock, a cybersecurity expert at Mimecast. Brian, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. What is the aim of International Data Privacy Day, and what's the message for individuals and for businesses?
I think so. First of all, the aim of International Data Privacy Day, really, it occurs once a year on the 28th of January, and it's to raise awareness to promote privacy and data protection best practices. And the message, I guess, to individuals is your data is your asset. It doesn't belong to the social media company or your insurance company or your bank. It's actually yours, and they need to treat it the same way they would treat a physical asset like your car or your house or something. And the message to organizations, whether they're schools or banks or whoever they may be, is that very much the same thing, but just flipped around, is that information doesn't belong to them and they have to treat it with the utmost respect.
A lot of the times you get two schools of thought. There are those who don't think that data security is a problem at all, and then there are those who are almost irrational about protecting their data. So let's talk about the threat. Is this real? Are they really coming for our data?
So they absolutely are. I think the way to think about it is there's two things. First of all, information, the way to think about it really is that personal information is like gold, because they can then weaponize that information against you to make their cyber scams more believable. Now, this has been true for hundreds of years, with any kind of a con man selling snake oil or whatever. So what's different now is that due to this rapid digitization that's happened in all kinds of ways, we've become more and more reliable on all kinds of digital things. And we've basically had to rush into it to a large extent because of the global pandemic, and we haven't really kept up a pace with things like protecting that data. So it's really been a gold rush for cyber criminals.
What steps should we be taking on a personal level, Brian, to ensure that we secure our data?
So first of all, you should make sure that the organizations you deal with actually are complying with POPIA. I think a lot of, that act has been around for a while now. It's still a relatively new law, but POPIA actually puts pressure on businesses to protect their customer data, and risk penalties if there's not. And I think it's up to us as consumers to actually hold those companies to account and actually find out what our rights are under POPIA, to ask them what information they're holding, that is ours, and if they still need to keep it, those sorts of things. So that's probably the first thing that one needs to do, is actually just be aware of what your rights are under POPIA. And then secondly, if you are ever in a situation, it's very, very difficult. The previous advice we used to give people was, look at an email that's coming in or a social media thing and don't believe everything. If it's too good to be true, it probably is. All of those things still hold true, but really, once cyber criminals get access to your information, we probably all know somebody who's been scammed in some way, and the scammers always have that little bit of information that makes their scam more believable. And the trick there really is, if the emotion of the event is high, in other words, if something's happening, somebody's phoned you and said your information's been compromised, or whatever the case is, if somebody's pushing you to do something quickly, or someone's appealing to your emotions, that should be a red flag. And the trick there is to take a step back, take a deep breath, I should say, and start sort of thinking about what's going on here. Because really what the cyber criminals are trying to do is keep you not thinking, keep you emotional, and keep you running on autopilot. And if you can just take a step back and just think about things for a second, it often is actually the key to not getting caught in these scams.
Brian, got about a minute left with you, so let me quickly ask about the business side of this. What should businesses be focusing on to ensure that they respect data privacy, and what's the business case for ensuring that?
So the business case is very, very clear. We've got huge amounts of information and research. Mimecast has done research across a number of things, which says that consumers are actually expecting businesses to respect their data. So first of all, businesses should put in, POPIA is not just about compliance with the data, it's also about taking all reasonable steps to prevent data loss or unauthorized access to that data. So it's not only the fines that might occur because of POPIA, it's also the impact on your reputation and your brand, that your consumers and your clients are actually expecting you to actually behave properly and treat their data like the asset that it is. And if you don't do that, there's obviously repercussions which are very, very negative.
Brian, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Cybersecurity expert Brian Pinnock joining